Yes. So again, we're going to have three of our clients and come up and really just present how they've been using the system. And these are three, let's call them power users. So you're hearing from clients who dig really deep into the system and use it successfully. So we're really excited and privileged to have all three of them up here presenting. First up will be Dr. Emil Endres, who's the Clinical Science Manager at Geistlich. He's going to talk about training a global team. Geistlich has people around the world using the system. So very excited to hear about that. Next will be Dominic Gutzler, who's the Director of Product Management at CytoSorbents, talking about webinars and how they're being used and possibly how improvements we can make going forward. And then Brian Lampton of Corin is the Global Professional Education Manager using the LearnWiseGo app, which I think most of you know is a standalone tool that can be pushed out through our system and how that's being used as a global marketing tool. So I'm going to turn it over now to Emil to get started. So thanks guys.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I'm not sure if you can see already my presentation. I try
Can
to
you
start.
just stop sharing? You should be able to share now.
Seems like it works.
Yeah, it works. Perfect.
Okay. So first, I want to thank you for inviting me for giving this little presentation. And Pam, you asked me to take this topic, the training of a global team. And yeah, I would like to start with a little comparison. So when we talk about training of a global team, what came spontaneously to my mind is selling shoes according to the individual needs of the trainees. So not everybody can take the same shoes or the same size, and you cannot just say start walking now with the same shoes and same size. So we have different levels of knowledge. We have different needs of the people. And what we really need to know before we start with the training is what to learn and how to learn, and also why to learn, but in the opposite direction, which I want to show you now. So we start actually with the topic of why. And in our case, as a pharma company, the big why is, of course, that employees that professionally consult the healthcare professionals or instruct them in the use of the medical device, they need to meet legal training requirements. Also, not only the sales force, but also research and development and marketing needs to have a training on those topics. And the question, how do we meet those requirements? I mean, we have different target groups in different dimensions, like the knowledge. We have beginners, we have advanced people, we have experts, and we should know that just handing over a education module may be for some people over challenging, for other maybe boring. Then we also have to talk about the dimension of job descriptions. We have sales, we have management, we have leadership, or we have trainers. So different needs. And so when we talk about the what, we need to go back and do some kind of a backward planning, which I will explain a little bit further in the next slides. Then we have to talk about what do we need for the training. So when we want to build up and maintain a state-of-the-art education, we have to talk about the corporate education strategy within the context of a blended learning approach. Why blended learning approach? So let's go back to the keyword, which is backward planning. So we have, in the first step, question ourselves, okay, where do we stand today? What do we have? What is the knowledge? What are cultural aspects for the trainings? And on a second question, there is the question of where do we want to go in the next maybe 5 years or whatever. So it's a midterm planning on topics of content and how do we want to deliver the knowledge and how do we want to implement in different timelines. So between the situation today and the situation maybe in 5 years, we will have some gaps, and now we can start analyzing those gaps and start to plan how we get the training to trainees. So with one example, we did a workshop with global staff from headquarters and affiliates. And we divided into several groups, like the clinical science managers, sales managers, then a separate group with marketing manager, and a separate group with the general manager. Why did we do that? Clearly to find out if all have the same in mind, what is necessary in terms of content or ways of delivery, and what are the timelines. And we got input for all the three of the topics, and actually the analysis gave a quite simple picture, as we found out that especially for that there are two major groups. So it's initial training for newcomers, and there's existing employees. And for both groups, it was quite easy to find or define a content which has to be done in the next maybe 5 years or given to fill the gap. And what it was more interesting was when we asked for what options would be favorable for delivering the content, we offered different scenarios like e-learning, classroom, co-traveling, whatever. But the most interesting thing was that all groups, they chose starting with e-learning, followed either by classroom training, which is then face-to-face education, and or on the other hand, e-learning followed by co-traveling, which means then expert mentoring. And depending on the group, like for newcomers, it was clearly defined as pre-reading e-learning followed by classroom training. And for the other group, the existing, the advanced or experts, it was e-learning as a preparation followed by the co-traveling. So there are some differences also in the timelines for implementation. What was quite easy to define was a training or education for newcomers. So we defined, okay, there is something they have to do in the first week, like going through several e-learning modules, maybe combined in a blended learning approach with classroom trainings or specialized trainings. The CSEM, this in our case stands for Clinical Science and Education Manager. Then we can define, let's say, the goals for the next quarter, co-traveling, e-learning again, role plays, and then a reminder for the rest of the year, for the first year. It was not so easy to define a timeline for the existing representatives, but we could imagine for biannually training, which can be done like a national sales and management meeting, co-traveling again, then monthly webinars, maybe monthly, even e-learning. Maybe every 2 years, then some kind of a refresher of standard trainings and tests to assess the knowledge. So the topic was, of course, education first, and to have an easy reminder and easy accessible tool for e-learning. We were thinking about what name would we give this platform, and in our case there is a marketing campaign that's called LNO, exactly like no other. So everybody was knowing about this term, and Artem had a great idea to just add two more words: remote education, exactly like no other, remote education. And so it became LNOR, which was easily to remember for everybody. And we try to link it via our intranet, so everybody has easy access to this platform and does not have to look into the emails 2 years ago. What was the link again, and how do I get access? So creating a link is very, very comfortable for the users. And then the other thing was, how do we roll out the plan, getting to the sales reps in the countries? So first thing we did was rolling out to some people in the headquarters to get first feedback before we go to the affiliates. And after the affiliates, we went on to the distributors. And even in the affiliates, we did a stepwise approach, starting with the leadership team, for them having the chance to test and see what is the content and decide, is it the right thing for my stuff? And then we went on to the sales reps. So why did we do this stepwise approach? Well, we were talking about the first phases up to now. The first phase of defining content, definition of the targets, writing storybooks, and the Q&A, and doing the release process for the modules. Then in phase 2, the program of the SCORM. First rollout of the English version, but then we have to think about the countries. Every country has a different setup. Salesforce is organized in different ways in different countries. And we wanted to also respect the leadership of the countries. If they didn't want any content to be done by the Salesforce, we had to pay respect for that. If they wanted us to add anything else, we had to pay respect to that. And therefore, we first brought it in English version to the leadership teams. And then, of course, we have to take respect that most of the sales reps do not speak a foreign language in the countries. So we had to think about how to do a translation. And so first thing was train the trainer in the country, respect the feedback, and then organize the translation. And after the translation and rolling out to the Salesforce, of course, there had to be done the monitoring and mentoring. Monitoring to get the feedback. Was it too complex? Was it easy enough to understand? Did they maybe miss any messages? And then the mentoring, continuous mentoring in terms of co-traveling assessment and so on. In the end, of course, to get a feedback and to refeed the feedback into the feedback loop for the next backward planning phase. So from phase 4 back to phase 1, maybe for the next modules. And this is just here a little or a simple detail, but I think it's very important. This is how we have done the monitoring of the translation. So this is just an example of the dental part. We also have modules for surgery and medical. But here for the dental part, we had different modules created in the English version first. And then, of course, there were some countries ordering translation version, language versions. And to keep the head above the water, it was necessary to have a controlled workflow. And you can see that here on the right side, we had different colors assigned for different states of the language version. From beginning, as the translation was ordered at the bureau, until the modules were assigned to the users. So a defined pathway, and we had to check consistently and constantly to be on track. So let me conclude and summarize. In the first step, it's necessary to analyze the competencies, and the competencies are a combination of knowledge and skills and attitudes. And it's necessary because in the beginning, the group is very inhomogeneous. We have newcomers, we have experts on the other hand, and some people in between. And to avoid inviting people to face-to-face training where some are bored or others are over-challenged, we have to get them to a certain level, minimum level of knowledge, and this can easily be done by e-learning. So they are prepared, they understand basic concepts, and they are focused for during, let's say, during face-to-face, then for in-depth training and special questions and answers. So in a third step, in the classroom training, we can build up, we can build on the existing knowledge. And still we have to say that traditional classroom training remains popular and it's easy to organize. It's offering the chance to exchange experience and build networks. You can exchange best practices, exchange knowledge. And yeah, as I said, it's still popular. And then, of course, when we have these trainings done, it is the next step is to monitor the success, to assess also the success, and the assessment deserves to identify the knowledge and the skills and the gaps. So with these gaps, we can go back into the feedback loop for the backward planning, and also the trainer and the content can be evaluated, and the trainees in future should be able to progress at their own speed, which I think is very, very important to keep in mind. Yeah, with that, thank you very much for your attention.
Hey, Emil, thank you. That was great. I know I have a question. Does anyone have any questions for Emil on the process in reaching the global team? Just in terms of, excuse me, in the translation, when you do it, the translation, do you do a audio translation or just a text translation or both?
Well, in that case, it was a text translation taken from the Articulate storyline files. We had a simple table which we sent to the translation bureau, and they sent to us. Well, we can go back again to that slide. Let me just share with you. So here it is again. So the first step was to order that translation using the Word file, and then at a certain point we received the translation back from the bureau and sent it to the country for a language check by native speakers. When we get the proofread back from the country, the programmer was progressing in, because every language has a different length and dimension, so we had to redimension the text boxes sometimes. And after this programming, there was an offline version programmed and sent to the country again for the cross-checking of the functionality and final correct version of the language. And as we got back the release from the country, there was a long language version done and put on Elnor, or let's say here on Magnify platform. And then finally, the users were assigned to the module.
So, and the process, which is great to actually see and how you do it, because I know this can be an issue for a lot of companies, as opposed to just pushing everything out in English and expecting people to digest it that way. Did you consider audio? And I'm only asking because I know it's expensive. It's probably more effective, but it's a lot more expensive if you start getting into audio translations. So it
well,
sounds
for
like
yeah, for the e-learning platform up to now, we did not do any audio translation. We did not use it because up to now it was all interactive SCORM packages, trying to transfer the knowledge necessary for the different therapeutic areas, for the instructions for use. And there was including some videos, but without how do you say? Without the speaker,
audio.
without audio. Right. Thank you. The voiceover.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. That's really useful, and the whole process is great. You guys clearly pay a lot of attention in ensuring the audience is comfortable before delivering the materials. I think that's very important. And thank you for that.
Right.
Andrew, just one comment. I think the translation is a common thorny problem that all of us face, and there's obviously lots of different ways of approaching it. We thought it was quite important to get the voiceover done by the local market. So when we've been looking at getting translations, what we've done is made sure that the native market, wherever that's coming from, has the script, and the script is in the notes. And then when we send the content to the translator, we tell them they must not only translate the content of the presentation, but they must also translate the notes. And that way, when we then get the content back, we can send it to the local market, and they can actually record the voiceover. And then when we put it into the local language, we do have that audio as well. And I think there are two main benefits to that. The first is very clearly that it's much better to engage more than one of your senses at a time. So audio and visual for sure. And the second one is just really that you get to add a little bit of local flavor. And then if you like, there's a third one, which is if people have the ability to be able to set a lesson plan, get it to start going, they can actually plug it into their car and be listening to it while they're driving to and from places as well. So I think there are many ways of doing the translation. None of them perfect. This looks great as a process, but I think I would die if I tried to do it this way. there's lots and lots and lots of things there. But it's a complex process that I think we all do in slightly different ways.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that using different ways of recognition, like visual and audio, would help to better remember the content. And this is what we want to implement in the next step. Yeah.
It does add another level of complexity, though. That's the only thing.
That's for sure. Yeah,
multiple languages and a lot of content. There's a lot of stuff there, and you are
and another budget.
You're asking the local market to do a bit more. But we've just found that over the last 6 months, we've had the ability to ask people to do a bit more, because a lot of them have been sat at home, unable to engage with their customers in the way that they normally would do.
Hey, Pam, I'm going to put you on the spot here. You may know the answer. Maybe one of the participants here does. If you create a articulate, we'll use articulate, a score module with multiple languages, can the user select the language they want, and then that is the result that's tracked in our system?
For sure. If you use a slide and select languages and create the paths to go to a specific set of slides, that can be created in Articulate. But it'll be a very, very big SCORM with many, many scenes. So
it'll be a complex creation, but it has the advantage of, instead of having multiple trainings going out in multiple languages, you could consolidate it into one.
Yeah,
then you're going to end up, especially if you have audio in there, it's going to be a significantly large file. So the pros and cons. Okay, good. All right, excellent. Emil, thank you so much. That was really, really good, very informative. Thank you.
Thanks to you.
Okay, we have.
I think I just seen Artem has a comment. Artem, did you want to jump in?
Yes, if I dare. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
Okay.
great. So let me even, so I will activate my camera. And to your last point about multiple language in Articulate, you definitely can create a selector, but Articulate, if you create a language version in Articulate, you also change the language in the template setting, and with all this control element, buttons, etc. And unfortunately, you cannot create such a selector for template and the window. And this is another issue. And it's practically mean that you have to create a number of separated files project in Articulate. And it's not only amount of audio that should be integrated. And I have another comment to what Brian said. Actually, as I know, almost all Magnify clients are from medical field, and you know, if you translate stuff, if an agency translating modules, the results never are that correct in terms of local medical terms and definitions. So this is why we always have 2 to 3 feedback loops just to improve the content itself. And it means we practically have to wait till the very end if we are considering to create a bespoke language module. And this is why this is one of the main reasons why we didn't do that. Besides, we even have several versions of English modules, one for FDA and one for SE. And it's another issue. There are so many things that keep us away from creating a bespoke modules. However, we consider it, but I believe so, in my personal opinion, most effective way is creating more or less simple video trainings with that are translated, or maybe just have subtitles. It's much more easier. And in case of bespoke e-learning modules, it's there are a lot of tricks that can engage people doing that module without having an audio option. And because every e-learning content or learning content that consists of built-in sound, it's generally has a lean back approach, and we want some interaction. And this is why, in my personal opinion, it's better to leave sound out if you have to deal with several languages for the same module, and just concentrate on the interactivity and continuous feedback with a person. So far, so good.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Artem. That's great comments.
A short comment from our side. Also, we played around with voiceovers and text-to-speech and other things, and decided now also to step back just to have the text only. And also we decided to focus on speed of production, just to go with the RISE modules, or RISE as a platform for building of modules instead of the Articulate storyline. Because for us it was much more important that more people can create content we put in our review pipeline, instead of having glossy fancy modules with a lot of toys in. And so, yeah, we've decided just to go for WISE, and in WISE the XLIF export and import function for translations, which works perfectly with our agency, is really nice. And we ensure the language quality by review loops with the native speakers to adapt the language of the translation to the local needs of the market. And this has sped up production of modules significantly on our side.
Very nice. That's good info, and Pam will actually touch on RISE a bit later in terms of a tool. It's part of the Articulate tool set. So thanks. That's great. Thanks everybody. That's a great presentation. Up next is Dominique, I believe.
Yes, Dominic.
All right.
So let me go ahead and, yes.
Okay, so let's start. So yeah, as said, my name is Dominic. I'm heading product management and a bit more in the background, also the regulatory and quality management of our small global organization. So CytoSorbents is a US organization located in Princeton, New Jersey, where production, R&D, and the finance department is located, but we have moved the whole marketing, medical research, clinical research departments and the sales departments to Berlin, where we bring our CE marked medical grade products to a lot of markets globally. And so I think we are working together for 5 years now. We have 2 platforms. One is active. This is experts at cytosorblearning.com, where we have about 500 seats. And we have prepared another platform, which is called Academy, which is targeted to clinical users, which is in preparation, but not open for the audience right now. As a medical product supplier, we underlie a lot of legal requirements, and we have to take care that we have proper training for all of our own employees and also for our distribution networks. And so many on the platform are on the Berlin side around 80 people from different departments. On the US side also 80 people, and a lot of sales managers, marketing managers, regulatory affairs, quality, whatever managers from our distribution network, which consists out of 60 or more than 60 distribution partners globally. We're in the domain of blood purification, which is a very hot topic under the current crisis of COVID. So we purify the blood, we take out hyperinflammatory mediators, which cools down this kind of crazy disease of COVID, and it seems that we are a helpful measure to help this kind of patients. But for this, we have a lot of training needs, and content on our platform is everything we need for onboarding, compliance training, data security, IT system training. So this is a framework for all employees in the company. For the medical and application team, we have dedicated medical training and also application training, where we have set up the system or set up the process in a way that the basic training in e-learning is a prerequisite for participation in webinar or classroom trainings. And as you know, classroom trainings right now, this is a nice to have option, so it's not possible. So we've switched over completely to webinar-based training, where we use Zoom as a platform. In the past, we were working with GoToMeeting, but after seeing some benefits on the Zoom side, we've left the GoTo platform completely and are now I think was around 100 Zoom Pro accounts completely on Zoom, and it works nicely. Main goal of the strategy, especially for the distributors, is to pull together all the content at one central place. This means e-learning modules, webinar, classroom trainings, and the content library. And here together we have developed the Dropbox plugin, over the sphere for media. We pull together all content. So for our distribution partners, if they want information, they have to visit the e-learning platform to get some kind of legal documents like CE certificates or instructions for use. And by visiting the e-learning platform, they learn also about new offerings in e-learning and webinars and other things. So trying to pull things to a central place is causing traffic, and this traffic is ensuring that people see other offers and participate. And so far it works quite well. On our platform, Maria, which is also part of this call here. She's supporting me here in management of the platform. She has spent some time to structure the whole teams in the e-learning platform, where we will have some kind of done some kind of structural analysis. How do we have to group the users of the platform to be able to assign content to these groups of users, which works nicely with the new features, which are, I think, in for 1.5 years now, Andrew. This group feature thing is, I think, 1.5 years in now. And so we've changed from user-based content assignment to a group-based content assignment. So if we have a new hire, HR can just create this account, put him into the right group, which is defined in some kind of training metrics in Excel in the background. And then to the groups, like here, e-learning content for the European team and e-learning content for the US team, we define content which some or all of these teams have to pass. So far, the blue items, this is what is in the platform. So we are still working on content libraries for the US team and ILT for the US team, but for the rest of the world, the system is up and running, and all are quite happy which are working on the system. I will focus now on the instructor-led training, and there mainly on the webinars, because this is an essential thing for our business. I've put together 2 workflows. So on the top you see, maybe this is a bit small to read, but on top you see the classical Zoom-based approach. If you use Zoom as a platform for webinars, there are some actors. There's a participant, there's a host of the webinar, there's a technical admin, and there are some tools involved like Zoom. So if you want to conduct a webinar, there's a request. And usually with this request, we have some kind of request form where people specify, I want to have on the 2nd of @2 for 1 hour a webinar. Target group is speakers are, and this is the content. This should be internal only or should be made public, pushed to our website. So we exactly know with a request, which can come from sales, from medical, from regulatory affairs, from HR, what has to be set up. So the admin is creating an event in Zoom, and this is technically putting in an event into Zoom engine. And the Zoom engine starts to work now in the background. The issue is, because there's no link to a customer database, if we just create a Zoom event, we have to use other mechanisms in parallel to invite people, to use email distribution lists, to send out the link. The users have to register for webinar. This registration is triggering further actions in the Zoom platform. And then some nice things happen, like, for example, if you set up the Zoom webinar in the right way, 1 hour prior to the meeting, the Zoom platform sends out another email. Sorry for that. Pressing too much buttons here. The Zoom platform sends out an email with a join link 1 hour prior to the event, and people love it. They just go to their email account, they find this email sent 1 hour prior to the event, click the button, and they are in. For the users, this is quite convenient because they just have to click the register link once in an email, and then they have to click the join link in another email. Job done for them. But then on our side, the work starts again. So we conduct the event, and right after the event, in the marketing team, people start to work on creation of reports, who has participated in the webinar. They create Excel lists, they start processes on based of the Excel list to get training documentation for the HR department. And also they have set up some kind of protocol-driven workflow to create certificates. In Zoom, you can link to workflows, but there you have to buy or rent tools. You pay a fee per license, or per certificate you create, and this is usually the cost of about $1, pound, euro per certificate you want to create by use of these tools. And if you do frequently webinars and you have over the months thousands of users, you burn a lot of money by this kind of Zoom-based workflow things, which are some kind of nice but costly. So a big benefit of the Zoom workflow is the email-based workflow for the user, for the client. They don't have to log in somewhere. They don't have to think about credentials. They just register, they click a link, job done. But the pain point for us in the administration is how to find out who really has participated in the webinar and how to create the certificates they want to have. And this is burning a lot of energy here in the background. So we're switching over to having Zoom linked to the LearnWise platform, which is technically quite easy. So you just have to create some kind of private key. You register the Zoom platform on the LearnWise platform, and then both systems are linked. You have to have a license in Zoom, which allows you to conduct webinars. These are some basic prerequisites you have in both cases. But then, again, the workflow starts here with a request. The admin creates a webinar in LearnWise, and this webinar gets linked to groups. So with a request, we specify this webinar has to be assigned to group sales direct German language countries area or distribution network. And then automatically via the LearnWise platform, all users in the group get notified via email that they are invited to participate in an email, in a webinar. And so now we have two trunks in parallel. So we have here on the bottom the current version, and on top some kind of project we work together on to enhance the situation to come more close to the top workflow. So right now the user gets from the LearnWise system an email where he sees I'm invited to participate in an email. He clicks a link, registers or logs in into the LearnWise platform, goes to the webinars, clicks accept or reject. Also there he can alter his decision. If he has accepted, he can reject. If he has rejected, he can accept. So this is also possible now. This was not possible, I think, a year ago. Another great enhancement on the platform that, yeah, one decision can be altered. And then later, the user has to right now return to the LearnWise platform and click on the join button. Then he's in the Zoom webinar, and then in the background after the Zoom webinar. Sorry, my computer's doing crazy things here. So after the webinar has ended, automatically the reports get created without any kind of manual interaction. Sorry for that here. I have some issues here. Okay. So after the webinar has finished, in the background, automatically the reports get updated, and you can set up your automatized reports that you can get some kind of push notification of an Excel list via email to the admins or team leads. So also in the background, we have our audit safe training documentation, and we have had in the past frequently already the request either by our distribution partners, give me a training report for my team, or also from the authorities doing audits of our notified body as a medical product supplier. Please show me the training status for the complaint process training, something like this, which we were really able to handle this here. And most important, we get automatically the certificates sent out to the user with the authentication methods which are part of the system. So The gaps, and this is what we are working on right now together, is we would like a more email-based workflow. So one of the things is we want that the users get an email where he can reject or confirm participation in a webinar already on the email level. And then also we want to get this Zoom-like join link email prior to the webinars, that via email a reminder gets sent in the small version, just with a link to go back to the platform, log in and click the join button. In the advanced version, maybe it's possible also to get a join link in the email, like in the Zoom webinar invitations. And then users could go via the email directly into the webinar and participate. So here we save a lot of money and time by use of the automatized features, and also this management of the webinars by using groups to assign content skips completely this email list-based approach to get the right people invited to the webinars. So there are some major benefits by using the embedded features, workflow features in LearnWise to streamline the workflow here to conduct a number of webinars on the platform. With this workflow on top, the total for a 1 hour webinar, the total manpower required is 3 to 4 hours averaged over all webinars. If we use this workflow, we are about 1.5 to 2 hours per webinar. This is a significant difference if you conduct webinars really frequently. With regards to communication right now, the emails without the frames, and thanks for removing this, looks like this. Very modern, very fresh. So internally, we just work on this outside email issue. So we've registered the domain now. So this should disappear also now in our emails sent out to the team members. But people know what's happening. They get instructions, they get the link, and with the options to modify the content in the email and also to translate, this works nice today here. But yeah, as people are very convenient, they want to have the accept and reject button right here, and still we get complaints. Why do I have to click the link? Why do I have to log in? And what we would like to have is shown here. You get the same email, 2 buttons, accept, reject. You can alter your decision within the platform, and later prior to the webinar, you get the join button. This is how we at CytoSorbents are using the system right now more and more, and some kind of wish list we have to enhance the workflow further. And we are quite happy with the platform. And in the beginning, people were concerned, why do we need this? And we have had some kind of experience with Moodle as platform in the past, out of the history we were coming from. And it was some kind of challenge to convince people, but now I think nobody can imagine to live in our organization without the LearnWise platform anymore. Thanks. If you have questions, let's talk. Otherwise, I would like to say thank you for your attention.
Dominic, thank you. That was really great. Dominic and his team have been a driver of a number of the innovations in our system and continue to drive us forward. So we appreciate that. We are, as Dom pointed out, working on ways to make the flow, but the interface between our LearnWiseGo and Zoom, specifically Zoom at this time, as they seem to be the most popular tool, smoother. And I think it's important that we do that. So we're working closely to get that done. If anyone has any questions for Dom, please fire away.
Thank you, Dominic, for this wonderful presentation. Up to now, we didn't use the webinar technology inside LearnWiseGo, but we want to. But I would have one question, because sometimes we would have webinars with a very confidential content. And how do you, with Zoom, prevent from misuse or fraud from people coming in? Because someone gave away this link and someone else from a, let's say, competitor would be able to join in without just recognizing. In GoTo, you have two different methods of preventing this. First, you can manually accept a registration, and the second is you can set a password. How is your experience with Zoom?
At the end, it's the same. It depends a bit on the way how you set up your Zoom meeting in the webinar settings, but you have a lot of different options to let's say lock your event, starting from auto accept to manual accept users. So even if you invite people, a list of users gets transferred to the Zoom system, and there you could set it up to manually approve each single one. Also, you can set up some kind of event related password which comes with the system, but also on top you could set up specific passwords per session. But maybe if you're interested, we can exchange contact details and we can have a short walkthrough just to show you in detail what how we do it in Zoom. But I think this is too much details for this session. But I can confirm there are methods to protect events, to sort out completely the issue of link sharing and random number dial in.
Okay, I just wanted to know if it is possible in Zoom as well, because we used it already for GoTo.
Yeah,
that's fine. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, quick add there. Sorry, Brian.
Yeah, I just have a question as well. So again, I'd like to pass my thanks on to Dominic. I thought that was great. I think the comparison of those two workflows is really interesting. And again, we've shied away from using LearnWise for our webinars, and we've been Cisco, we've been Zoom, we've been GoToMeeting, and we seem to flip-flop between those three and use some things for others and some things not. So I think, you know, being able to have that workflow at the bottom as you showed it, you know, that you're working on with the guys, looks fantastic. And I think, Andrew, if you had that and you nailed that down, that would be something I would probably want to start using and integrating into our stuff. And I would be delighted, Dominic, if we could meet separately, just so that I could understand a little bit more about how you do things. So Pam, if you could put us in touch, that'd be great.
For sure.
And maybe if the new workflow is up and running, maybe it makes sense to have a for interested people another webinar with experience exchange, just to go through and be more go more to details. So if you're interested, I'm open for that.
Sounds good.
Yeah. The one thing is the assignment and management thing, but really the biggest pain point was the inability of Zoom with the tools aboard to create certificates. This was really the master pain point. I know that GoToMeeting has some features to issue certificates within the system, but if you go with the nice fancy let's say protocol-driven tools, you can plug in Zoom and any other system via API. There are some services issuing certificates, but per plan, or depending on the plan, you pay in average €1 per certificate. And if you go over the months for 1,000 users, these are €1,000 you burn.
Andrew, I've got a question. For now, it's possible to link Zoom and GoToTraining to LearnWise, right?
Correct.
And you mentioned that Zoom works kind of better with LearnWiseGo. Better comparing to GoToTraining, or better comparing to other remote training software?
No, I think any developments we do will work with GoToTraining as well. When I say better, it just seems to be the market leader in the media anyway, in the US anyway, and I think globally, I mean, they're just kind of blowing up. So I think from that standpoint, that's where Zoom has become a focus. Now there's also, we're seeing more of Google Meet, Microsoft Teams also making a play where it appears GoTo and I think it's Citrix is the owner are way behind, and WebEx as well.
Well, actually, Geistlich is on the same track as Brian described. So we use everything that's available, and it's depends on the current need and situation. I was wondering if it's possible to create a learning sequence out of learning model that is in the LearnWise in the second step, webinar or remote classroom. And at the end, a kind of quiz also as an e-learning module. Is it currently possible?
So you can attach a training to a webinar. So on completion of a webinar, a training can be automatically pushed out. That you can do. You cannot have a pre and a post. So it's really a post training. The challenge with building it into a sequence of training is that the webinar has a fixed point in time, right? It happens on a certain date, a certain time if people don't complete things. So you'd kind of manually manage the pre and then have the webinar, and then you can automatically push out a test.
Okay, but I guess that calendar in LearnWise and calendar in Zoom or GoToTraining talk to each other, right?
Correct.
Good. Thank you.
All right. I think, Dominique, if you're good, thank you very much. And next up, we have Brian talking about the app. Let's turn this over to you here, Brian.
Okay, so so I'm Global Head of Professional Education at Corin. Obviously, we use LearnWiseGo and have done it for a long time. And we call it HubSpot, which was fine until we bought a company in Massachusetts, where there's also a product called HubSpot, which was a bit of a challenge. So this is what we look like. A few years ago, we were relatively small. Turnover was, just 20, 30, 40 million. And over the past 5 or 6 years, we've made 5 acquisitions. We have 2 production plants, one in the UK, one in Australia. We have 5 research and development facilities, UK, Montbonneau in France, Australia, and 2 in the US, one for tech in Santa Clara and one in Raynham, Massachusetts. We have 6 regulatory sites, we have 11 subsidiaries, we have 50 distributors, and we have about 900 employees. So it really has grown, and LearnWise has grown with us. So we've gradually got familiar over time with the technology, and we've been pushing the boundaries pretty much every year, asking for more things, sometimes paying for them if we have to, other times trying to force Andrew to pay for them. And the system has grown in its complexity and enables us to do a lot more than we used to. So we have a lot of people we're trying to get to now, and out of that number of 862, about 300 of those are salespeople, either within the organization or outside. So, we have this one primary objective, which is to increase value to our stakeholders. And we have 3 groups. We have the patients, who are ultimately the end users of our product, our devices. We have the surgeons, who are the intermediate users of our products and our technologies for their patients. And we have the administration, who are, if you like, the financial backbone of everything. So we have these different stakeholders that we have to make sure our teams are educated on. And that's got quite complicated over time. And the reason why that's got complicated is that in 2015, we were very much over on the left-hand side of the graphic that you see there as a classic orthopedic company, manufacturing metal and plastic, and selling those bits of metal and plastic to surgeons. The challenge is that over the last 5 years, the products have become a bit more commoditized, and we've needed to not only look clinically at how do we improve, but how do we separate ourselves from the herd in terms of developing personalized technologies. And those personalized technologies have meant that everything's got a lot more complicated, because it's not just the clinical side that people have to understand. They also have to understand how these technologies work, how these technologies are starting to work with each other. And that's kind of developing an entire new knowledge base in our teams. And then in the last couple of years, what we started to do is try and knit all of those products together. So that it becomes what we call Corin Connect, which effectively we really only truly launched this year. So all those technologies talk to each other. So that again in itself is really another product that we are getting our salespeople to sell to their customers. And now what we're moving towards is not only do we have all these products, these technologies, and everything's joined together, but we're now starting to gather a huge amount of data within the Corin registry, which is this sort of HIPAA compliant big filing cabinet of data. And we're starting to make connections with all of that data that is getting driven by artificial intelligence to help us make better solutions without having to worry about the billions of combinations of those data sets. And those algorithms are self-learning. So there's been this huge digital transformation in the company that's meant that we've really had to change the way that we do things. And everything was working fine. But the truth of the matter is that we felt that we were doing things in a very old-fashioned way. We were still very much stuck in the 80s and 90s, where everything was being done in the classroom, and it didn't really make a lot of sense for us. You know, it's expensive, it's quite complicated to organize, and it wasn't really working for us anymore. People didn't want to give us a week or 2 weeks of their time if they were somebody that was already experienced. So they needed something that was going to enable us to mix things up a little bit, so we could still do residential training if we wanted to, but we also wanted to create a vehicle for people to learn on the fly. We had a lot of content, but most of our content has been aimed at the sales and marketing functions within the organization, and they really did want something on the fly. The other side of what we were looking for was we really wanted a tool to support our sales force when they were in front of their customers. So everything is changing so quickly that you can have a surgical technique one day that has just been finished, it's just been printed, you've got 10,000 of them, and then a week later something happens with MDR and you have to change something within that surgical technique, and you're no longer allowed to use that surgical technique, and you've just spent £5,000 on printing those documents. So there's a data thing going on, there's information acceleration happening, there's increased regulatory diligence that's happening in terms of revisions of various different things. And then there's this sort of environmental piece as well. You know, we were using thousands and thousands of boxes of literature every month, and we were highly dependent on paper. Everybody hated it. The sales reps hated having to carry it around. They never had the bit that they wanted when they wanted it. And of course, from our carbon footprint standpoint, it was an absolute nightmare. They were chopping down trees all over the place, printing on them, and it really wasn't good for, you know, a modern orthopedic company, and therefore we needed something that made a lot more sense. So that was a real challenge for us, and we started working on wanting this about 7 years ago, and it took a little while for this app possibility to arrive, but of course that's all changed now, and we've now had the app for a few years, and we've been using it pretty much for everything over the past few years. One of the things that was really interesting this year, though, was the situation around COVID really gave us a very big kick in terms of what we were doing. Because like most organizations, we have these different technologies. You know, you see two of them here, OPS and Omnibotics, and we have multiple levels of training based on what each of those trainings required. And you see on the left, one of them at the basic level, you could cover a case, but you couldn't really sell the technology until you had a much higher level of understanding because of how complex the knowledge was in terms of selling. Whereas on Omnibotics, the other one, you could sell it because the technology was quite easy to describe, but you couldn't cover a case because you needed a lot more knowledge. And then at the highest levels, we were trying to develop people to go from being sales reps to being effective case coverers to being the people that were then doing the training for us, and removing that workload off of, or somewhat off of the training department. But one of the things that happened with COVID was almost overnight, we had to stop doing residential training. It just became something that we weren't able to do anymore. And I think it was on the Thursday I got the phone call to say, you can no longer do residential training. And on the following Tuesday, they wanted us to start a 10 or 12 week web-based training course that would include nearly 200 hours of web content in multiple languages, in multiple time zones, across these multiple levels. And that really became, you know, the sort of bedrock of what I was doing for about 3 months. But what it did give us was a huge amount of content that we then knew was going to be at least marginally evergreen, that would probably last us for the rest of this year. So COVID actually has been a terrible thing worldwide, but it has had some interesting benefits in terms of what we've been able to do from a training standpoint. So what is it for us? Well, really it's our training and sales support platform, and it really performs two functions. One is it houses pretty much all of the content that you can access on LearnWise on the desktop, but on the fly. So one of the challenges that our sales reps have is they don't have half a day to sit in front of a computer and sit and learn something. You know, historically they're on the go, they're moving about, they're in their cars, they're in car parks waiting for things to happen, they're in coffee rooms, they're in coffee shops, you know, they're trying to grab 20 minutes, half an hour to interact with some content. But on the other side, we also really wanted to make sure that we put all of our sales support materials in there for the reasons that I've already stated. You know, a one-stop shop that houses everything that the salespeople need to do their functions, whilst also allowing us to target other functions within the organization for some of the learnings that they needed to do. But our focus truly has been on the sales and marketing functions. And the thing that's really been a game changer for us in the past 12 months has been not only being able to have it on the iPad, but also be able to have it on other mobile devices, Android devices, and particularly iPhones, because that's really the device that our team basically all have access to. So that was really what we were trying to achieve. And we split it into two areas, orthopedic essentials and sales support. And I'm going to show you those in a little bit. But our orthopedic essentials was, we put all the standard training presentations on there. We put on all of our audio files as well. So a lot of our guys, when they get the translations, they do the audio in PowerPoint, and we simply zip that up and put that into the system. And that's been really popular. We have the live recordings of the webinars, and we put those on there as well. And initially those were all put on in date order, so that people could just look through the agenda that we had, go straight to the date that it was on at, and listen to it, because they were never looking more than about a week behind. But now that COVID is over, we've now split those out into the product groups, so that people can just go to the product or the technology they're looking for and find the recordings there. So another side was clinical data, including full clinical papers for people to read. And we had quite a long chat with our in-house legal counsel as to whether or not we were allowed to put the papers on there. But as long as we don't share them and people don't have the ability to email them, then we were covered. And then of course we put surgical videos on there as well. And one of the functions that of course is great is we do have an enormous amount of information on our platform. We really do have lots and lots and lots of content. So we need the ability to only download the content that you want to see. So there is that ability to do that, and we're currently talking with Andrew and Pam about the ability to download content by subfolder or by folder. So we're currently talking about that to allow people to download content much more quickly. So really the central part of this, people can learn their stuff anywhere. And then when they do get onto the desktop, which is where they have to go to do the assessments, they don't necessarily have to go through the content again. They can bypass the content and go straight to the test. So it's really working for everybody. It's working for us as administrators to the platform, and it's also working for the sales force. So it's been extraordinarily successful for us. And just to give you an idea, as I said, we have about 300 active salespeople, both within the organization and within our distributors. And so at the moment, we have about 230 of those people that have accounts who have downloaded the app. And one of the things that's interesting about that is that if we look at our US organization, we might have 10 registered users from a distributor, but there might only actually be 1 or 2 of those who are actively representing the company. So we have to provide licenses for all of those people, but they don't necessarily all currently represent our products. So we think pretty much everybody that is representing the company, that is in the OR, is going into the hospitals, is speaking to the different stakeholders, has this on their iPad or on their iPhone or on some other Android device, or indeed on both. So it's been very, very powerful for us as a marketing tool. And then the other side is this sales support hub. And this is really doing the same thing as the training, but on the product knowledge side. So everything that we might want to share with a surgeon or show a surgeon in the sales process is also available. Surgical techniques, clinical data, technical flyers, surgical videos, literally everything is on there, including the sales presentations, sometimes long and short presentations. And of course, the real beauty is that, you know, in a modern operating theatre, people, you know, how many times did you go into an operating theatre and they would have lost the surgical technique that you bought them last time? Whereas now it's much easier. We can simply call up that document, email it to somebody in the OR, and they can just put it on one of the screens. And that really has been a game changer for us with our customers. And then again, the ability to just download the content that you want to use means that if you know you haven't been using some content in the past, but you know you're going to want it the next day, you just go down, find the content you want, download it, and then you've got it present all the time on your device. And if you choose that you don't want it after that, you simply get rid of it again. So you know it's been a really effective sales and marketing tool across the organization. But I'm not going to lie to you, it's a process. You know, we have been working with this for a number of years, and it really has been a challenge sometimes to get people to understand what we're trying to achieve. And then the other thing that we wanted to make sure that we did, and this is just a slide that shows how people could access the videos from this week's training session or last week's training session. And we wanted to try and make sure that it didn't matter what device they were on, they would always follow the same file structure, no matter what the device was that they were using. So from the very top of the app, the most taps or clicks that they would have to do is 4 to get to anywhere in the app. So this was a really important part for us, because the danger is if people have to do too many clicks, they kind of get bored or lost. Whereas we've had to try and make sure that the structure that we've created is actually quite a flat structure. And in truth, one of the things that's forced us to do that is a restriction in the levels that are actually available in the platform. So it's been quite good practice for us. We are starting to run into some frustrations now. So again, we are talking to the guys about adding some more levels so that we can go deeper if we so desire. But again, Andrew's charging me for that, so I'm gonna try and figure out if we're going to go ahead with that. So what I wanted to do is I'll take some questions if people have them in a minute. But what I'd like to do is I'd quite like to just show you this in practice. So hopefully everyone can see my screen again. What you're seeing on the left is my iPad, and what you're seeing on the right is my iPhone. And what I'm just going to do is just delve into a couple of bits real quick. So in Orthopedic Essentials, you see this folder here, which is Orthopedic Essentials 2. I can just dive into that and I can get into the guts of what we're trying to do straight away. So Corin Connect is a key area of what we're doing within the organization. And we have a product called Omnibotics, and we've done that training in those levels that we talked about, level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 3 is currently being developed, but we have level 1 and level 2. And if I just dive into level 1, you get to see exactly the same thing, whether it's on an iPad or whether it's on an iPhone. And just forgive the delay on the icons. I've got fairly old devices on my desk, but the faster devices, the faster iPads, the newer iPhones do launch those icons quicker. And creating those icons was a really key element of what we did, because we wanted people to understand what each of those things was without really having to kind of read anything. The other thing that's been important has been the ability now to change where files are within the folder structure. And that literally is only maybe a month old as a feature. And that's been, I can't tell you how important that's been for us to be able to reorder the documents. So the documents are in the right order, as you see on the screen, 1.01, 1.02, 03, 04, 05, 06. And then all of those videos, and those videos, that TP stands for training program. So each of those TPs are one of the 1 hour webinars that we held on GoToMeeting, that we recorded, that we then compressed and put into the platform. So, you know, we now have sort of 120 odd hours of that training program that now resides within the LearnWise platform. So that's sort of one area where we've used it. So I'll just go back up again. Go to HIP. So I'll be going to HIP. So now we're into still the same orthopedic essentials, so it's still product knowledge, but this time I'm going to go into a product called Mini HIP. And you see here I go straight in and I'm already into the content. So I've literally gone orthopedic essentials, HIP, and the product. And there is the information in the order that I want it. I've got the master training presentation first. I've then got the training presentation video. I've got a zip file that I want people to read. I've got a couple of PDFs, and then I've got some evidence and some competitor analysis. And then I've got a presentation by one of our key faculty members. And I've got exactly the same thing on the phone as I have on the iPad. So again, everything is exactly the same, no matter what device you are looking at. And then I just want to do one more of these. So this time I want to go into the knee side. So you see again, I'm doing exactly the same thing on both devices. I've gone into knee. I'm going to go into level 2, and then you'll see 2 products there. One is a product called Apex, one is a product called Unity. And what you see there is exactly the same thing. I'm just doing exactly the same thing across anything that I'm doing. But again, I'm trying not to make it complicated for the end user. They've never got to do more than 4 clicks to get to what they need. The other thing that was important to us was we didn't want to ever lose anything. So within our folder structure, we've actually created an archive so that even when you've been going through a massive change in content, which we've been doing, we didn't want to simply throw everything away. We wanted to leave all of that content there, because some people were already using that content and we didn't want them to not be able to access it. But what we've done is we're going to, in the fullness of time, you'll see on my on both of these, it's got one more, you'll see that we've got Orthopedic Essentials and Orthopedic Essentials 2. So Orthopedic Essentials is the original version. That's the one that's going to be discontinued at the end of October. And Orthopedic Essentials is the new one, or Orthopedic Essentials 2. But you'll also note that we've got an Australia folder and a USA folder. And that's because each of those markets has a different regulatory standpoint. And although they're using the same content, they don't have everything available. So what they've done is they've just created their own library from exactly the same content. But if we archive and replace something, it will be replaced within all of those folders. And that's kind of important. So that's on the education side. On the sales support side, again, very, very similar structure. So we've got exactly the same folders available. And I'm going to go into Corin Connect again, just because it's something that's very important to us right now. I can go into OPS Insight, which is a new product. And now what you see is a slightly different structure. I've got a folder in there that has the IFUs in there, but I don't necessarily want those IFUs clogging up the page, because you don't have an enormous amount of real estate on your iPad, and you definitely don't have an enormous amount of real estate on your phone. So we kept the instructions for use in their own folder, and the folders always sit at the top of the structure. But again, they're there. If I want to look at those, I can get to them very easily. And if I want to download them, I can. And if I want to go into a specific one, this is how quick it is to download one. Okay, so I only have about a meg download at home. And again, I'm using my bandwidth to be on this WebEx. So I'm there now, that's my IFU. And if I want to, I can email that directly to somebody straight away. And that's already gone. So I can email straight from the app exactly what I want. So that's been extremely useful for us. But what you can do is you can easily lock down the documents as well. So if you don't want a document to be emailable, you simply stop it from being emailable in the back end when you load the content. So that's been really important for us. So we sometimes in a situation where we have a slightly different folder structure. So here I've got OPS Review. OPS is a product which we're literally just launching now. And what you see here is we've managed to get to the folder structure earlier on. So we've got to the folder structure early. And now what I can do is I can delve into one of those, folders and get to the content that I want. So I've just, can't get rid of that. I've got down to the actual documents much earlier than I would otherwise have done. And so really this is meant that people don't have to wait for things to be approved, validated, printed, put on a ship, sent out. As soon as it's validated by regulatory and I get given it, I can put it on the port, I can put it on HubSpot, it can be available within half an hour. So we've really shortened the period of time it takes for us to get from information that wasn't available to information that is now available. And then one last thing that I just wanted to cover, just to show you one more thing, was if I get into the HIP products again, and again, if I want to look at a specific product like Mini HIP, and again, this has been very useful to create icons for products, because you're almost not even reading what's on there. I'm just looking for the picture of the product. So I can get straight into the material. I can open a surgical technique, okay, like that on my screen. I don't think I've downloaded it on my phone, but again, I could download that on my phone, no problem at all. So again, if I don't have it, but I can connect to the internet from wherever I am, I can simply download that document if I don't have it. And I can simply go from where I am to being able to email or share that document in any way that you want to. So all the different ways that you have of sharing, whether you're on your mobile phone or on your other mobile device, you can do. So it's been, it's definitely been a challenge. I'm not going to say it's been the easiest thing in the world to sort out. But we have worked extremely hard to make this available to our teams, and we are now starting to see the fruits of our labors. And that's how we use it as a sales and marketing tool.
Hey, Brian, thanks very much. I mean, it is impressive what you've accomplished with the tool and how you guys are using it. You're really pushing it and getting maximum value out of it, which is it's great for us to see. I think Brian made some comments that it's been a process, which it has, and with technology we're continually improving. We've got a few enhancements that we're working on for the app in terms of reports. So there's a lot still coming and getting better. But yeah, thanks to Brian and his team, it is at the point that it's at now, which is a highly usable and effective tool for, again, sales and marketing. This is not a training tool, it's a sales and marketing tool, the app. One thing to point out, which is that it is managed from within LearnWiseGo. So it is managed within the same platform you're using for your training. So everything's there, the users are there, the groups are there, the content is even there. It's just how you structure it, and then it gets pushed out to people's smartphones and tablets. Does anyone have any questions on the app? I know, I'm not sure if anyone else, I don't think anyone else on this call is using it yet. But we're happy to share with you demos and ways to use it. In fact, Pam just put together a great kind of explainer video as well. We're happy to share. Everybody good? All right, great. Thanks, Brian. That was great. That's
your air server.
That's Brian's backyard. All right.
I've been up tidying up after a 21-year-old. I don't want to tidy up after that lot.
Thank you.